We're the Pennsylvania Municipal League, and our mission is to strengthen, empower, and advocate for effective local government. We're furthering that mission here this week. We're providing a lot of professional development opportunities, I think bringing some great sessions and opportunities for people to take back to their communities some of the best practices that are going on out there in the municipal world in Pennsylvania.
I want to welcome you again to our 120th annual summit, which is a great accomplishment for this organization. It's a milestone. It's an opportunity for us to get together and talk about all of the solutions we have. We don't talk about problems, we talk about solutions.
I certainly think most of our folks are concerned about rising costs and how do you comply with those, how do you compete with those and make sure that you've got the revenues associated to support the quality of life services that you want to provide to your community to make it better a place to live. And that's always a challenge, is to make those numbers work.
Certainly from an issue standpoint, of course, public safety continues to be a great challenge in many, many areas. Crisis management, the ongoing issues about gun violence in many areas, not only in Pennsylvania but across the country. Clean air, clean water. Climate change is a significant issue in Pennsylvania and many of our locales, and so these are the great issues of the day, and the people making the most action and the greatest gains are generally going to be local government.
Binding arbitration is something that's imposed on us as our folks go through the process with their public safety personnel, and sometimes those costs and what can be awarded through that process can be significant. And the elected officials, the folks that the voters have trusted to make the best decisions for that community, have no say in that. It's imposed on them and they must pay. We'd like to see some changes to that, but it is a big issue in municipal world in Pennsylvania.
Well, Act 111's been around a long time and it hasn't been changed, so we're trying to get it changed so that it's a level the playing field between us, the municipal government that has to pay for the police and fire, and just level it out. I mean, we're not looking to hurt anyone, we just like to level the playing field.
What kind of financial pressure does that put on municipalities in Pennsylvania?
Well, local municipalities don't have an opportunity to decide and determine how much money they have to pay their employees, so it goes to binding arbitration. And usually the binding arbitrators always side with the unions and give, hefty raises.
How does that impact a municipality's efforts to be able to deliver basic services?
Well, for example, in my own city in Easton, police and fire are now well beyond the it's 60% of my budget, and it's well beyond the property taxes that we collect. Normally, the way you look at a municipal government is property tax usually covers your public safety. Public safety is not covered by any property tax in any city.
For a long time now, we've been promoting changes to the municipal pension plan statutes. We do have a bill this year that we think could help many of our municipalities stem those costs going forward. I mean, what we want is sustainability with pensions. We understand that pensions are a big issue for all of our personnel, and we want to provide them with the appropriate pensions, but we also make it affordable, and we want to make it sustainable and not have surprises when the market changes. It's got to be something that's some more systemic changes would be helpful.
Pension reform is something we've been trying for 30 years. It's not going anywhere. We think we can get something closer this year. And we're not trying to hurt police or fire, but when you have a police officer or a firefighter retiring at 20 or 30 years with a better than $80,000 a year pension, it's not sustainable. All we want to do is to try to provide something that's sustainable. Even if this community has to pay Social Security for that person while they're working, at least when they retire, they'll have a pension and Social Security. It'll be easier on the taxpayers.
Norristown has had, over the last few years, an issue with the high cost of pensions. We are trying to fund it and budget it every year, but as it increases every year, that gets more and more difficult. So we have been trying to use unique ways of funding it by reaching out to organizations that help with the learning of how to fund it, different ways that we can come up with that's going to increase our pension. Currently, our fire department funding for the pension is pretty much on track with where we need to be, but our police is underfunded, and we are having a difficult time with that.
That is certainly a factor, and it is a factor that we definitely need help from Harrisburg to address in a fair and equitable way to make sure that we are honoring the service of the men and women who've served our communities for many, many years, while also addressing the rising costs, especially related to health care.
As costs rise, it takes away resources from other very important things that we want to do. In fact, it actually takes away from our ability to hire new employees, and therefore it's not impacting the community in a positive way.
When any cost keeps going up and feels out of control and unfunded, you have to look for the funds somewhere.
I'm from Moon Township, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. Our pension cost in a year is about over $1 million. We have about 30 full-time police officers, public works and administration, 85 full-time employees. That's about a $500,000 to $1.25 for us. So that cost every year increases. State aid decreases. Employee contributions are pretty high. We have an 8% employee contribution. So it affects us roads, any other services, recreation, parks that we need to make up with the pension. We can't offer these services to our residents. And it's hard to justify a tax increase to cover benefits, employee benefits.
It hurts our economy being in an urban community. It hurts everything. It hurts the school district. It hurts economic development in urban towns where we're trying to get ahead of it, but unfortunately it just keeps doing the same old thing. So hopefully the attorney DePasquale definitely gets something together to make sure that we can finally do something about that pension problem.
It's a top priority. It's how do we expand our tax base? How do we, again, have our revenues grow so they can keep up with inflationary expenses? It's a huge issue, and everybody's looking to find that niche in their community that makes sense, that can foster economic and community development and allow those things to occur and make it a place that people want to invest.
Revitalizing our communities is something that all of us in local government should be striving for. We all have abandoned buildings or blighted properties, and I think it's crucial and it's critical to be able to find developers and to find businesses who want to bring those buildings back to life and move their businesses into those buildings because, we have to grow our tax base, and cities like Altoona, we don't have a lot of land that's able to be developed still, so we have to make use of the existing buildings, and there's a lot of character to those buildings, and that's revitalizing communities is crucial and vital to our cities.
That's really important, and that's one of the areas that we really are delving into to make sure that we do that. Economic development is another area that we're looking at as well. We've been fortunate enough to have the courthouse start, so that's one of the positive things that the City of Harrisburg is doing as well.
Pension problems and economic development within the Norristown area, just like everybody else. One of the things that we look at is how we can get funding and developers to come into our town and build up our town and to make the tax base come lower and do some things that we're behind in for 20, 30 years.
Good schools are a big issue in every community. Folks don't want to, if you're a young family, you want to live in a place where you're going to, even though you might like the community, the schools also have to be commensurate with that community, and they have to, the place you want to live has to have a good school. So we certainly have always been a proponent of appropriate school funding levels so that we can see our school districts thrive.
People don't move to cities or any community that doesn't have good public education. Quality public education is still the number one thing that parents look for when they have to relocate. So we're proud of all the school districts in Pennsylvania, but some are doing better than others because, again, that playing field isn't level. You have some very, very wealthy school districts and some very, very poor school districts. Kids should not be hampered in education and the quality of that education by where they live.
we in the school district of Lancaster, I'm a proud public school parent. My daughter goes to our school district, and I am an advocate for fair funding formulas, which would dramatically affect our particularly low-income and fixed-income residents' ability to stay in their homes long-term. So that has a huge impact on the future of our cities.
The tax base is very stagnant in much of Pennsylvania, and as we dedicate resources to schools and to other important educational institutions, it takes away from our ability to fund other important services like police and fire, which are just as important to the future of our communities.
That the public education definitely attracts people to live there if you have a strong education system. But I know that they have a hard time raising enough funds anymore because we have a decreasing population. And so the tax base erodes along those lines. Same thing with developing the neighborhoods. And, so you really want to be a good place to live and provide all those basic services.
We believe in local government autonomy. We cede autonomy for gain. What we've seen is more and more attempts to preempt local government's inherent rights, like zoning and code enforcement and those things. Their ability to enact bans on certain materials, all those things we're looking at those things getting preempted, and we don't think it's a good thing. We think local governments are most responsive to the constituents, and they ought to make their own decisions what's best for their community.
Preemption of local government is just stupid. I can't say it any better. State legislature is just going down the wrong path. I mean, I guess they think we have stupid written on our forehead by local government officials, but we know best what's best for our communities. Our people know what's best for our communities, and the state should stop regulating, especially when it comes to zoning issues. They're trying to preempt us on zoning issues, and that's just not right. Local communities should determine what local communities can do and not do.
Local, with the state level, I don't think their heart and their interest is not in each and every municipality or borough or township. At a local level, you have those who have a vested interest because they live in those cities and they know the everyday workings, what's going on, and they know the people.
One of the things that I really want to do is see us be able to get some of the legislation that PML has been supporting across the finish line in Harrisburg, and probably the biggest one would be the local use of radar. That's something that we as the league have been really fighting for the past few sessions now in Harrisburg, and that's really probably the biggest legislation that I would like to see us be able to get passed.
In Easton, we went to home rule charter because it gives us a little bit more flexibility. If the state's not going to give us flexibility, we got to go to our own local residents to give us flexibility. Flexibility, again, you have cities of the first and second class, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, who have a whole array of revenue producing or revenue enhancement that's not costing your taxpayers, maybe costing your visitors or drink tax or something. We can't do that in cities of the third class. All the other cities are cities of the third class. We can't do that. Give us the flexibility. Again, the state doesn't have to tell us what the taxes are. They don't have to take the burden. Let us do that. We're willing to accept the blame or the burden of levying taxes, but let us determine what is best type of tax for our community.
The wireless telecommunications efforts that are being put forth across the nation and in Pennsylvania. This legislation would preempt local zoning as it stands now, and it's very important that House and Senate members know that this is of great concern to local government. We need to be able to preserve zoning to make sure that the poles and antennas that are needed for the wireless infrastructure are going where local officials and the community feel they best should go. Another issue is post-traumatic stress injury for first responders. This is very important in terms of making sure that first responders that need assistance get it, but also that the bill is narrow enough that it's not going to be overly expensive to local government and eventually taxpayers, and most likely hurt first responders and communities if all of their funds are going to pay for the premium for this benefit.
We are continuing to push the bipartisan Restore Pennsylvania proposal. I've been traveling around the Commonwealth visiting communities as Secretary of DCED for almost 5 years now, and I continue to hear that communities are struggling with the same challenges that they faced for years and in some cases decades. I've heard that blight is threatening the health and safety of our neighborhoods. I've seen it firsthand. Flood protection is lacking. Flood damage is forcing communities to deal with overwhelming repair and restoration costs at a time where modeling predicts rain totals will only continue to increase. Many components of Pennsylvania's transportation infrastructure have been neglected, particularly our 4-digit state roads and back roads in our public transit systems. And lack of access to high-speed internet hurts our children's ability to learn, our teachers' ability to teach, hurts doctors and emergency personnel's ability to provide health care, and hurts our businesses' ability to market themselves and conduct business online. It also hurts the ability for us to attract young people into this state in certain areas. It is critical that we upgrade our high-speed internet to the extent that we need to. These hinder economic and community development in Pennsylvania like never before. That means less opportunity for residents and workers to grow and thrive, yet there aren't enough resources at the state or federal level to make meaningful headway into fixing these issues. Communities are left with nowhere to turn. That's why the governor's proposed Restore Pennsylvania, a $4.5 billion proposal to bring the Commonwealth into the 21st century and provide our communities with the resources they need to fix decades-old problems. Restore Pennsylvania will bring high-speed internet access to every Pennsylvanian, remediate blight across the state, protect our communities from flooding, and rebuild our transportation and green infrastructure. And it's funded through a common-sense severance tax. This severance tax will not affect the impact fee at all. It will not affect the impact fee $1, meaning communities using the impact fee won't have to worry about that revenue being taken away. It'll still be in place. It also won't affect royalty payments, so landowners shouldn't worry about seeing a drop in revenue from royalty payments either. Most of all, Restore Pennsylvania will be driven from local needs, by local needs. This is designed to be a bottom-up program, not a top-down program. It's our fundamental responsibility as state government to help our communities with these critical infrastructure issues, and Restore Pennsylvania is really the only way that we can tackle that, all of those issues at one time. Legislation was introduced in the previous session, and we're going to continue to work with the legislature to get this legislation passed into law. It is that critical. I believe if Restore Pennsylvania passes, it's going to be a transformative moment for this Commonwealth. Our communities will be healthier, safer, and we'll have a greater ability to generate revenue and provide for our local residents.
We're promoting the Restore Pennsylvania proposal from Governor Wolf, and it's to reinvest in our communities, infrastructure, broadband, flood prevention, resiliency, address some of the most urgent needs in our urban and rural areas. It would benefit communities because right now we're so dependent on real estate taxes, and the budgets in all of our municipalities are strained just providing everyday services that our sewer and water and infrastructure, our broadband has lagged behind, and it would let us reinvest in stuff that hasn't been invested in decades.
As a former mayor and past president of PML, what would this mean for communities across the state?
It would mean, broadband for kids, and so they can do their homework when they get home from school instead of on the school bus or going to the sheet store for Wi-Fi. It would mean new sewer and water projects. It would mean revitalization.
In many ways, we are living in some of our greatest times, but there are some incredible challenges that our young people face. Look, we've all had it tough at some point, but the social media culture that is impacting so many of our young people today can be devastating to so many. Look, we all had a time when we weren't invited to a high school party or something like that, and we can chuckle about that, or somebody wrote something bad about you on the bathroom wall, or any of those things. I'm not saying any of that was okay. Our kids today have to deal with people posting that stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and they see the party on Facebook Live that they weren't invited to. They see the things that people comment on, particularly the horrible things that are said about young women and physical appearances, and what they are made to believe is the ideal, that we all know is not. So as a society, we have to come to grips with it, because so many of our young people today, 1 out of every 10 teenager, 1 out of every 10 has contemplated suicide. 1 out of 10. That's horrifying. So for all of us, these things impact, yes, cities, boroughs, and towns, but they impact our greater society. And so as I spend the next year and a half coming to the end of my 2 terms as your Auditor General, these are some of the issues that I'm going to be working on. And people say, what's that have to do with being the Auditor General? Look, we audit all of these programs. We audit their effectiveness or lack thereof. When it came to opioid addiction, we did a thorough audit of all the state's drug rehabilitation programs. And we found the state was doing a better job of spending money on it, but not getting a bang for our buck. So those are some of the issues that I'm going to continue to advocate for over my next close to 1.25 years remaining in office. And I want to continue to work with you and the other legislative allies we have on municipal pension reform, because I will continue to say it until the Constitution kicks me out as Auditor General. This is the missing financial piece to make sure that our cities can take off like a rocket ship. Because you cannot, we all know public safety is an issue. You can't hire the additional police officers if we don't fix this. You can't pay for the fire truck if we don't fix this. So we have to fix it, or the other issues will continue to linger. People want now to move to the cities, boroughs, and towns. I know my son's a sophomore in college. They don't care about owning, like when we were younger, you wanted to buy the car and all. That's not what interests them today. They want to be in the cities, but we've got to make sure that we're able to keep the taxes down and make them safe. And how do you do that? Fixing municipal pensions is the way to do that. So let's continue to fight to make sure that we get common sense reform there, and also continue to work on the other issues that you continue to advocate for here and across the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Let me look you in the eye and say, you are going to face some kind of high stakes, perhaps life or death challenge. Maybe not you per se, but one of you in the proverbial sense. They are the probabilities. And so when John asked about would I come out and talk a little bit, I said happy to. I have great regard and appreciation for what you do on an everyday, every minute basis. Look at the program, friends. You know what this program says? It shouts at you. It shouts at you. Are you ready? Topically. Cybersecurity. Communications during high-stress moments. How's your fire department doing? They're key first responders. My dad once said to me, I cannot imagine you doing a good job without the key people in the municipal apparatus, you know, ambulance, fire, and PD, not believing you've got the right perspective. You got to nail that constituency down first. I believe that, by the way. I still believe that to this day. I hope you do too. And I bring this up because this agenda screams at you, and this is why, as professionally dedicated folks, we gather. Are you ready? Is your government ready?
When you have 20 inches of snow on the ground, it's really not a Democrat or Republican problem. You can't make a speech and move the snow. Your people move the snow. Your government moves the snow. We interact with people at a level, which is the beauty of the Pennsylvania Municipal League and why I love local government, because we have to get stuff done every day. It's not like we deliver water service on Monday and fire service on Tuesday and books and schools for children on Wednesday, and then we give you something else on Thursday and kind of take Friday off, because, you know, people, of course, think we take Fridays off. We deliver services every day, all day, to everyone, all across the city, the county, the borough, whatever the level, township, whatever the level of government is. But that's why I love local government, because we have to perform. And people have expectations, and they have a right to certain expectations. I'm sure no one in here has been reminded by any of your citizens that they pay your salaries. I'm sure that's never come up in any conversation. I'm sure that's just a Philly thing. And they do. And they have a certain right of expectation about whether the water will be clean or the traffic signals will work or will there be lights at night, recreation for their kids, and again, coordination between and among all of us. Win the election, and then, we have big transition. It's a big city, we've got stuff going on, big transition teams, and people are working and doing all this stuff, and they're sending you memos and everything, and no one mentioned that we were about to go into the worst recession since the Great Depression. It was not in any of the notes. I'm still really kind of upset about that. Had a lot of smart people. No, well, of course, no one knew that it was coming. And in those tough times, it's your principles, it's your focus, it's your dedication that will guide you. We could not run out of money. We had to keep providing service. I was the biggest tax cutter, an advocate of tax cuts in Philadelphia City Council during my tenure. And as mayor, my first action was to call for a tax hike. Cut the police budget, cut the fire budget. Everybody's budget was impacted. These are not good times. We figured out a way, apparently, to piss off everybody in Philadelphia. Do you know how much effort that takes? But the tough decisions in the first term led to not only a shrinking, but also a strengthening of our city government. It made us question everything that we do and why we do it, and should we be doing it? Are we the best ones to provide that service? Should we continue providing that service? How can we provide that service better or more efficiently, more productively? How do we inspire our people that everybody is all in, that we're all in this together, that it's a shared sacrifice, and that if we stick together, don't point fingers but extend a hand, remember who we serve, our children and the most vulnerable people in our city, we could get through this. As a result of taking the blows and taking the tough hits and not being particularly popular, because it's not about popularity, it's about service. Philadelphia is one of the few cities coming out of the recession who had their bond rating increased. A rating for the first time since the 70s. Lowest wage tax rate since the 70s. Lowest crime rate since the 60s when we left. Nearly $12 billion of economic investment started, completed, or announced because we did exciting things like revising our zoning code for the first time in 50 years. Philadelphia generally wants to be the first or last to do whatever. We have no interest in being in the middle. Revamping our zoning code, developing development plans, creating development plans all across the city. It's the heart and soul of service. It's not always exciting. It's not always dynamic. It's not always a lot of fun. But it's the fundamentals of how do you make a government run? How do you serve people? We kept our focus. And as I said, it was never about popularity. Because if you make it about you, you won't make the best decisions for your people. If you ever get to the point where you think your job is keeping the job, you have lost your way. Because, quite honestly, if this is the only thing that you can do, you really need to check yourself. Public service is an honor. It is not a right. It's an honor, not a right. Do the right thing is more than a great movie title. It is a way of serving. Local government really matters. The Pennsylvania Municipal League is an advocate, is a champion for local government leaders, a resource for information, best practices, and all folks I know in local government care passionately about their citizens. They want to serve them well and serve them as best they possibly can. The Pennsylvania Municipal League is the organization to help them do their jobs even better.
The relationship between Pennsylvania and the UK is one of long-standing and great friendship. Over the many years of the friendship between us and also between the US and the UK, we have built an incredibly strong trading relationship worth more than $200 billion a year. The United States is our single biggest bilateral export market and takes nearly 20% of all of UK exports. We are the largest investors in each other's country, with $1 trillion invested across the Atlantic. Every day, over 1 million UK citizens go to work in the US, and over 1 million US citizens go to work in the UK. This is a relationship that I don't think anyone can rival. As I say, the UK's relationship with Pennsylvania specifically is also deep and strong. In 2017, exports from Pennsylvania to the UK totaled over $2 billion, making us your largest export market. More importantly, those exports, ranging from pharmaceuticals and medical supplies to motor vehicle parts, chemicals and metals, supported over 21,000 jobs here in the Keystone State. The UK is also a major investor in Pennsylvania, and UK subsidiaries based here employ many thousands of people in companies like Shell, currently building an ethylene cracker plant in Potter Township outside Pittsburgh, and employing over 6,000 Pennsylvanians in its construction. GlaxoSmithKline, which employs 3,500 Pennsylvanians, and just last week completed a $120 million expansion to its manufacturing facility in Upper Merion, illustrating that not only do British subsidiaries create jobs in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, they create jobs in townships, boroughs, and cities throughout the Commonwealth.
We have a program called the Business Leaders Network. These are folks from all over Pennsylvania and some from outside of the state. These are businesses that serve local communities. So they provide a whole range of financial, technological, and other services for local communities. So we have Comcast, we have insurance firms, engineering firms, and they all serve municipal marketplace here in Pennsylvania.
How is this a win-win situation for everyone?
Well, the business leaders are with us year-round, not just during the conference. They help provide a whole host of sessions and seminars, and their resources. They have great staffs and great teams of people to help local officials stretch their tax dollars and operate more efficiently.
Our company is Constellation Energy, a proud member of the Business Leaders Network. Today we're going to be educating members about how to build an integrated energy strategy to help them develop their energy budget, but also meet their sustainability goals moving forward. Well, being a member of the BLN has really given us access to the membership of the Municipal League and has allowed the members to feel comfortable with Constellation and the strategies we can provide.
What advice would you have for other businesses around Pennsylvania?
I think if you can become a member of the Business Leaders Network, you should definitely look into it, as it really gives you a great conduit to the membership of the PML.
The service line program administered by Utility Service Partners is a member of the Business Leaders Network, and today we're going to talk about our program and how municipalities can be compassionate for their homeowners and help to provide a program like ours. So we would partner with a municipality to make our program available to a resident, and we provide homeowners with completely optional protection on their external water lines, external sewer lines, as well as their in-home plumbing. And we do that at no cost to a municipality, and it helps to educate a resident of what their service line responsibility is, all while helping them take care of an issue if it were to arise.
How valuable has the membership in the Business Leaders Network been?
Sure. Being a member of the Business Leaders Network is invaluable to us. It really helps us create stronger relationships with the municipalities here across Pennsylvania.
My name is Bill Warren, and our firm, Saul Ewing, Arnstein & Lear, is a member of the Business Leaders Network. I have two workshops. One is on the subject of construction, procurement, and public-private partnerships. And then I'm also moderating a solicitor's session, which starts in a little bit, and that involves the participation of solicitors around the state. We like supporting the league. It really comes down to that. Certainly there's some advantages in terms of exposure and an opportunity to meet a whole bunch of people, see old friends. All these things are pluses. We're a relationship type of orientation that we have, and so this furthers that.
Our company, UComp, is a member of the Business Leaders Program, and our session today is somewhat of an overview of what unemployment is about, and it looks at unemployment from the standpoint of the employer's view and not necessarily the claimant's view. So what we're trying to do is give the employers that are present a little bit of background on that and give them some ideas about how to save money on unemployment, as well as some of the terms that they might come across.
What has being a member of the Business Leaders Network meant for your company?
It has assisted in terms of company exposure so that we're able to go out there and talk with people more. And so being a member of the Business Leaders Program has provided us kind of a stage in which to present that sort of information.
Our company is a member of the Business Leaders Network, and our company, the reasons why it's so important for us is because we get our name out there for AT&T, and it's very important for us to be involved with the communities. And we service the communities. As we know, AT&T is pretty much everywhere, and it's a very big, important part of our communities. The importance of what we're talking about today is FirstNet, and FirstNet is a prioritized network for all first responders for the state of Pennsylvania and for the nation. Why it's so important is because it gives us priority and preemption on the entire AT&T network for all first responders.
Our company Comcast is a member of the Business Leaders Network and has been for such a long time. We're here to talk today about many of the ways that the cable and telecommunications industry in general impacts and works with great cooperation with local governments across the Commonwealth and across the country.
What has being a member of the Business Leaders Network meant to your company?
Oh, it's been just a pleasure and an honor to be part of the Business Leaders Network, to engage with all of the members of the League. It's an honor to represent the Business Leaders Network on the board. The ability to forge relationships at the local level are keys to so many of our businesses, particularly ours, and it's the League just offers an opportunity like no other to develop those relationships.
Our concurrent session deals with social media, which is an issue that's all over the news, and we see a lot of scandals and legal issues involving it nationally and locally, where we're training our employees and training our elected officials on how to avoid landmines involving social media. Social media can be used for a lot of great reasons, but we're reaching out and we're training here today on how to avoid legal liability and landmines on misuse of social media.
What are some of the pitfalls facing municipalities?
Pitfalls facing municipalities are potential liability when employees on and off duty misuse social media. We've seen a lot of that with the recent Plainview scandal, which has received national press regarding police and social media postings. And it can cause problems in community relations, problems in employees being able to do their jobs effectively, and it can cause potential legal liability if social media abuse isn't corrected immediately.
What advice do you have for municipalities?
One of my chief advices is to have a social media policy, update that policy, and train your employees frequently on the appropriate usage of social media.
Our concurrent session today deals with municipal restoration and coordination with utilities. It's an important topic right now as municipalities and utilities are working together to repair roads and improve utility services within the confines of the boroughs and municipalities across the Commonwealth. And the more coordination we can do, we can reduce on cost and the impact on residents in the townships.
What is your advice for municipal officials?
I think the advice I have is to communicate with utilities, both about the positives and negatives that they see with our operations, to work with us to identify ways we can become more efficient as a group together, and we can improve and make our roads safer and better for our residents in the townships.
Our concurrent session today talks about the issue of town-gown relations. And that is an issue, I believe, for every college or university in the country, in the world, just sort of how you coexist with your neighbors around you. And so I'll talk a little bit about that today from the Villanova perspective.
What is your recommendation for municipalities across Pennsylvania?
Definitely working with your colleges and universities. We work closely with Radnor and Lower Merion townships, the two townships that make up our university, where we're wholly located, and just working with them, proactive and consistent messaging with them is really what my job is focused on, working with the police, the local elected officials, the township staff, and our neighbors.
Our concurrent session today deals with telling your story. It's really about municipal communications and how communication has changed, and at the same time how it's stayed the same within municipalities.
What's your recommendation for municipalities across Pennsylvania?
The most important thing that we can do as municipalities is make sure that we're telling our story, because if we're not telling our story, somebody else is.
What are your suggestions on how to do that?
Certainly, I think one of the fastest growing areas that we have to make sure as a municipality we understand is video, and have videos being used in all of our communication mediums, including our websites and our social media.
Our concurrent session today deals with the issue of managing municipal investments, and that's important because those investments are dollars that come from the public, and it's important that we take care of the public trust in managing funds efficiently, effectively, and safely.
What recommendation do you have for municipalities across Pennsylvania?
Always, number one, think about the safety of your municipal funds. Second, think about liquidity, having those funds available when you need to pay the bills. It's very important. And last, think about earning a competitive return, but not one that is beyond the normal scope of the market.
Our concurrent session speaks to the matter of hunger, and mainly dealing with children.
And what have you done in your city?
We've expanded our programs where we're a number of food sites where we're feeding children, to include Firehouse Fridays, where we have one of our local fire stations that are every Friday at the end of the school day between 3 and 4 o'clock, where they open the doors to the fire station and to several of our elementary as well as our middle school for the children to come and get a meal.
What kind of response have you had from the children and parents in Allentown?
So far, it's been great. We've been able to expand a number of sites, and the number of children being fed has expanded significantly.
What would you recommend to other cities across Pennsylvania?
I would tell them to think outside the box, as we have done in the city of Allentown, as far as utilizing fire stations. I hope to actually utilize a police site also, and to reach out. I'm surprised, but I've learned myself that there is a great shortage of food for children, and there's a great need for it. And I think that can be said for many of our cities throughout the Commonwealth.
Our workshop this morning deals with the Sustainable Pennsylvania Community Certification Program that we do, the Sustainable Pittsburgh does in collaboration with the Pennsylvania Municipal League, in regards to how municipalities can improve their sustainability, assess their sustainability, and benchmark themselves against other communities in the state.
What kind of success have you seen so far?
Amazing success. We have more than 105 municipalities across the state that are certified. That's representing more than 3.5 million people in the state, and we've seen municipalities go from bronze to gold to platinum in their certification, improving their financial situations, improving their green infrastructure, and working on other initiatives to improve sustainability in their communities. The goal of the program is to increase the policy and practice, the adopted policy and practice of sustainability in communities across the state, thereby benefiting the lives and working abilities of citizens and businesses and communities across Pennsylvania.
We want to set a standard, a starting point for all the cities to start looking at security differently, to start viewing workplace violence as the top of the security concern. And if you take care of that, anything below it's going to also take care of itself. And really we find that standardization of these topics is what the challenge is, because most cities don't have a security director, which is different than the police department, right? Not quite the same thing. So we're going to engage people, we engage them today in Q&A based on this National Standard for the American Society of Industrial Security, that's ASIS.
I think the most important thing that you can do with your workplace violence prevention program is to own it. You need to have someone at upper management within your municipality owning that program and basically filtering that program down to your subordinates. This is what we're going to do. And the other aspect of that is having a formal written workplace violence prevention and intervention standard that addresses everything, all the components defining violence, defining what a weapon is, defining your role and responsibility as an employee to report that information, and then moreover having a threat assessment team. Anybody have a threat assessment team here? One person.
One.
Kudos to you.
Oh, two, three, okay.
Great.
All right. That's
so
good.
if you do not have a threat assessment team, how do you evaluate that threat? How do you evaluate the individual who may act out? And how do you go out to third parties, such as what we're dealing more and more with now is the rippling effect of diminished capacity. Individuals that have gotten into the workplace, that are acting odd, that are weird, made comments or statements that have put people off. How do we deal with those individuals? Can you make that assessment of that individual? And moreover, it's reaching out and having a third party, almost a behavioral psychologist, give you some of that information and how to respond to that event.
Intimate partner violence. Probably one of the biggest factors. It's addressed in the standard. And just a show of hands, how many of you have a policy that requires your employees, if an employee goes out and gets a restraining order against a domestic partner and names the workplace in the protective order, how many of your employees are required to report that fact to you?
Just
I
one.
see one hand. Two.
Yeah. That's a low occurrence.
That's a key, because if a domestic partner comes into the workplace to look for a spouse, and you have not been alerted to that fact, that's a major vulnerability in your system. And so the standard promotes that in your policy. That's why having a fairly well-defined policy that addresses these type of issues is the key to this entire, it's the glue that holds everything together.
Individual is being terminated. This individual is extremely upset, and he brandishes a knife, and he makes very threatening gestures, direct threats to the HR person and his manager, and police are called, and he's arrested. And the organization's like, this is great, this is all done. And within 2 hours, he I-bonds out and he's back on the street. So direct threat made, people are unhinged, and there is a misunderstanding of how law enforcement reacts as well as the process, the law enforcement process. He I-bonds out. That's an individual recognizance bond. No money, no nothing, walks out of the jail. And just 2 hours earlier, he's threatening people. How do we deal with that? And that's really where the power of the threat management, the threat assessment team, and the formalized workplace violence policy and procedure comes into play to really support the actions that your organization is going to take.
You have to get in front of the guy being violent before he even acts out. It's not effective enough to have a committee that says, oh, we have a guy that's a problem employee and we have to turn around and do a survey and figure out what he's going to do. If you're sitting down doing a committee analysis of somebody's threat, it's kind of too late. We have to get in front of the problem.
So one of my favorite stories about Nelson Mandela is about his experience on Robben Island when he was held there for almost 30 years. And what we subsequently found out was that when guards were sent to Robben Island to be guarding people like Mandela, they were warned that you are going to be dealing with hate-filled people, people who want to destroy our country. You are going to be dealing with terrorists, the most evil people that you can imagine, that you are going to be dealing with communists, because at that point in South Africa, anything bad was labeled communist. So you need to be prepared to face this evil. You need to be strong human beings to withstand this evil that is going to come against you. And then from his God's own stories, we hear that whenever they interacted with President Mandela, they spoke about meeting a human being who saw them as human beings, who talked to them, who wanted to know their stories, who wanted to know about their families, who asked them questions about what they loved and what they hated. He had guards who said, you know, within a month of guarding Mandela, he knew more about me than my commander, who I had been working for years. That he showed an interest in me, even to the extent of having one of the guards tell him that, you know, I have a son who is truly, truly clever. He is a brilliant young man, and he should go to university. But there is no way that my wife and I can afford to send him to college. And President Mandela, from prison, reached out to those who were supporting him and his family during this time and said, my godson needs a scholarship to university. I need you to raise money so that this young man can go to college. And they did. And for this God, this was the beginning for him for questioning, so if they've lied to me about this man, what else have those who lead me lied to me about? What else have they told me about black people that might not be true? What else have they taught me about apartheid that might not be true? What else have they told me about the need to separate us from other races that might not be true? So because one person said, I am going to reach out in this time of hardship and crisis. I am going to reach out to this person who I am told is meant to be my enemy. The questions spread from the God to his family, to his son, about what is it that we are upholding in our country? And how would a change actually maybe make our life better? So this one person building a bridge to one other person started a conversation, and not I won't even go as far as to say a movement, but at least started a community of people who had fully supported apartheid in the process of thinking, what else is possible? What else might our country look like if we were not separated completely from people of other races? My message actually comes from two African proverbs. One about how we are all connected as human beings, and that means that we have a responsibility to hold one another accountable, but also to care about one another. And the other talks about how in times of trouble, the wise build connections. They find ways of connecting with other human beings to make sure that the community survives and thrives. And so taking the lessons from those proverbs, talking about how that translates into our daily lives.
Well, this is the Pennsylvania Municipal League Summit in Gettysburg, our annual summit. And for the last 10 years, we've been building a playground, partnering with the local community and other sponsors and building a playground for kids. Sort of like leaving our mark on this every city we've been to in the last 10 years. A lot of volunteerism, helping Gettysburg build a park in their rec park area, and just it's interesting, and making sure it's level and putting everything together. With all this help, it can do it in one morning.
I think this really shows the dedication of all the volunteers to be out here in the rain, really working hard to make sure that this playground gets finished today. This is going to be a great addition to all the residents here in Gettysburg, and I'm sure it will get a lot of use in the future. I think this is a really awesome thing that we do with PML. It's kind of kind of like leaving our mark on every community that we visit every year with the summit.
We think having these recreational opportunities in all of our members and contributes to the quality of life and really makes a better community, and we're so glad to be part of it. But this has been a great group to work with, and obviously we're ready to go as we came today and had all the parts numbered, and everybody just kind of coordinates and go from there. So we're making great progress, but it does take a lot of upfront work for sure. Helping lift some things here and there. So we've had a good group working this.
We have lots of partners. The GARA is involved, the Gettysburg Area Recreational Authority, the Pennsylvania Municipal League, of course, because we're hosting our conference here. We have Highmark as our main sponsor, and it's really just a whole group of regular folks that came out to volunteer and give their time to put it together. So we're just excited. Once again, this is a project we've been doing in each community that hosts our annual conference since 2010. So we're very excited to be able to do it. One of the other key partners I should mention is the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, DCNR. They give a grant to the local community, and the local community matches that grant to help pay for the equipment that we're installing today. So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has been very supportive of this project through DCNR, and we're excited that they continue to stand with us again this year. So a lot of partners, but it all comes together on what we call Build Day, when we're out here, even in the rain, putting together this brand new playground for the kids in the Gettysburg area.
I'm a member of the Chambersburg Borough Council, and I came over here because it's a worthwhile project as a member of Borough Council and a member of the Pennsylvania Municipal League to be here to support the Gettysburg Rec Department. Oh, it's wonderful. I'm so happy for this project. The Borough of Gettysburg is so fortunate to have this rec department and to have such volunteers locally and through the Municipal League to be here to help. The first thing I thought about were some grandnephews and a niece who frequent the Gettysburg parks. And oh boy, are they going to have fun on the apparatus, the slide, the monkey bars. It was made for kids.
I'm in this position to serve, and this gives us an extra opportunity to serve our host community, to come and do a project for them that will enhance the community. Frankly, my opinion is if we're not doing something that enhances our community, we're probably not doing enough. So anytime I can help and serve somewhere, I certainly appreciate it, appreciate the opportunity. I helped with assembly and moving concrete to the work site. Those are the two jobs that have taken up most of my time.
The Business Leaders Network are a group of business partners that work with the League year-round. They're not just involved at the conference, but they help do training and seminars, a wide variety of topics, from financial management, auditing, to running your community more efficiently with best practices. All these things are part of what the Business Leaders Network does. So they're great partners.
Our company is in the Business Leaders Network, and I came out here today to help build a playground for the community. Started shoveling some gravel, bringing trucks of rocks in. So,
what do you think of this project?
I think it's great. It's a great part for the community, bringing the community together.
What has the Business Leaders Network meant to your business?
It gives us an opportunity to work with different municipalities within the state of Pennsylvania and come together and help serve them.
I came out here today to represent Gwen Dobson and Foreman with PML, and we are a business leader within the PML, part of the Business Leaders Network, and we believe in supporting communities throughout Pennsylvania.
It's just a great feeling, and it certainly makes us feel at the Municipal League that we're fulfilling our mission, which is to strengthen, empower, and advocate for our members and our local governments, and obviously strengthening this community is what this is all about.
Anytime you can add recreational opportunities in all communities, it's great for the residents, for the children there. It gets them out, it gets them moving, it keeps them active, and really that's all you could ask for.
Like my own home city, Easton, Pennsylvania, we couldn't do half the things we do without volunteerism. Volunteerism is what's made America great, and really we rely on it not only in Gettysburg and Easton, but throughout the whole country.
Your reaction when you see the finished product?
I'm excited. I'm glad, as president of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, I'm the outgoing president. I've done 2 of these playgrounds. It's really good. I've done 10, but 2 in the last 2 years during my presidency.
The Constitution of the United States and this Commonwealth, the principles and bylaws of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, and that you will discharge the duties of your office with fidelity.
I do.
I will.
I do.
Thank you.
Go to our website, www.pml.org. Contact anybody on there in the various departments, and we'll be glad to help.